Neglect for a lot of us is a bad word. Like you want to take care of stuff because what you don't take care of will automatically begin to move towards disorder. That's the law of entropy, right? However, sometimes we have thoughts and beliefs and emotions that are attached to those thoughts and beliefs that we should go out of our way to neglect. For some of us, we're entertaining thoughts of fear that should be neglected. For some of us, we're entertaining thoughts of lack that should be neglected. The things that we've entertained around beliefs and stories of lack and not enough, and it won't work out, and I'm not good enough, and it's too late for me, and it's going to take too long. And all of these stories, for a lot of us, we've entertained them and fed them so much that they've grown and they've been able to take over. But what we should have really done is neglected them. Optimal health is not a privilege, it's a right. However, unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of health challenges today can be attributed to lifestyle. This includes our physical activity, the quality of our relationships, stress, purpose and fulfillment, and of course, our diet. But what if there was an alternative? What if we could prevent and combat these health challenges with lifestyle changes before pills and procedures? You are listening to the Plant Protocol podcast with yours truly, plant-based health and business coach, and now the forever voice in your head, Lisa A. Smith. It's time to come get this health. Let me give you guys the backdrop for today's conversation. The year was 2012. I was overweight. I was approaching 200 pounds. And I was also overworked and underpaid. I was doing very honorable work as a social worker, specifically a foster care worker for the state of Michigan. And so I was a foster care worker for the state of Michigan. So I was doing very honorable work, but I was still overworked and underpaid, meaning our caseloads were through the roof. The workload was crazy. And I was not making the amount that I wanted to make based on the quality of life I wanted to live. But most importantly, the work that I was doing did not allow me to hone my gifts and my talents, right? And then finally, I was engaged to be married with someone who I would eventually not marry, right? So this was 2012. And now if we were to fast forward all the way into today, 2025, life looks totally different. Today, I am at a healthy weight and a body that I'm super proud of and confident in. So I am currently at my healthy weight and my optimal weight. And so I have a ton of body confidence. I've dropped over 65 pounds. I'm now working in a career that is really fulfilling and is honorable work. And most importantly, optimizes my gifts and talents. And I am in a relationship that is healthy, whole, and complete. And so 2025 looks very different than 2012 did. And so what I want to spend some time on today is sharing with you guys what I had to do to get here. What did I have to do to improve my overall life satisfaction? So I'm going to share with you guys 3 things that I had to stop believing in order to arrive at the place where I am today. Because I know a lot of us listening, a lot of you guys watching, also are in a place where an area or multiple areas in your life are not optimal, right? They might be just okay. They might be what we call not that bad. They might be what we talked about last week in the middle, right? But they're not optimal. So they're not the worst they can be. Like your health isn't the worst it can be. Your finances aren't the worst they can be. Your career satisfaction isn't the lowest. Your relationship isn't completely bad, but it's also not the best it can be. Your money ain't the best. Your health ain't the best it can be. And so today I want to tell you what I did to close the gap between the two for myself personally. We're talking about life satisfaction today and how do we get from a place where we're not optimal, whether it be in our health, our relationships, our personal growth, our spirituality, our financial wellness, our relationships, platonic, romantic, to a place where they're completely optimized, right? And the reason I want to have this conversation with y'all today is because for a lot of people, those areas never get optimized, right? Like for a lot of people, we settle for the middle. For a lot of people, we live our lives, not just in the middle class, but in the middle of everything. And our health is not the best, but it's not the worst. And our finances is not the best, but it's not the worst. Or in our job, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. Like a lot of people have settled into the middle. And as I told you guys in last Monday's keynote, there's nothing wrong with the middle if that's where you desire to be. But if you're in the middle and the middle wasn't your first choice, then we got to do some things to move the needle. And so I was at once many years ago in the middle. And I want to share with you guys what I did to get from here to here when it comes to overall life satisfaction, right? Eliminating things like chronic stress, eliminating things like out of control eating habits and excess weights and insecurity, getting rid of and getting out of a job and a career that was not looking like it was headed to happiness and fulfillment and enjoyment and all of the things, right? And so I want to tell you how we got there today. Now, before I kick this thing off really quickly, y'all, now I'm drinking water today, and let me tell you why. Now my regulars know I'm usually on here with my cup of tea, but I'm drinking water today. I'm at home, but I got to fly out today. I got a flight to catch in just a couple of hours this afternoon. And so my travel schedule, when I have to fly, I like to front load all of my water as quickly as possible so that, it's all out of my system by the time it's time to board the plane, because I don't use the bathroom on planes, right? And so I'm getting all my water in now for y'all. So that way, when I fly out in about 6 hours, I done met my quota, because we got non-negotiables in our health over here. It don't matter if we traveling, right? We still got priorities and non-negotiables in our health. Let's get into the topic today. How did I optimize these areas of my life? So let me tell you guys, I want to break down for you guys the 3 things that I personally had to start ignoring and neglecting in order to optimize my health, my profession, and my relationships, the health of my relationships. Now, you guys tell me, in one of those areas for you, is there an area of your life, whether it be health, career, or relationships, that's not quite optimal? Just drop a 1 if I'm talking to you. You like, I'm not the worst, but I can't stand to lose some weight, or I do need to get off these medications, or I do need to improve my eating habits. In your career, it's not like I'm not completely miserable, but would I like to be doing something else? Or do I believe my assignment is different? Or maybe my gifts and talents aren't being optimized, guys. Just put a 1 if one of these areas resonates for you. And maybe in your relationship, I have my romantic relationship isn't the best, or there's friendships or my social circle. I would love for that to grow a little bit and get better. Let me tell you guys what I did. And it's very simple. I read something in a book recently that I'm reading, right, by Joseph Murphy. And he was talking about what's required to really shift belief, right? Because many of you guys have heard me say before that behavior follows belief. And so we know a lot of times the things that we do are a result of what we currently believe. The things that we do are often informed by the things that we believe. And let me tell you why this is important. Anytime you're trying to move the needle in any area of your life, your beliefs are usually the first thing that does the decision making. So let me give you an even more dialed in example. As a plant-based health coach, we help a lot of people who are battling things like obesity or diabetes or heart disease or hypertension or high cholesterol. And what happens a lot of times is they will listen to me. They will even participate in some of our experiences like our challenge or my complimentary master classes, right? However, if before finding me, they have been told by a doctor that this runs in your family and you're going to be on medications for the rest of your life because it's genetic, that belief has begun to inform their decision. So when they find me and I say stuff like, it doesn't matter if your mama and daddy had it, it doesn't matter if your grandparents have it, you still have a fighting chance to beat this thing. First thing that happens is they're confused. They have some cognitive dissonance, like, wait a minute. My doctor told me it runs in my family and it just is what it is. And you're telling me I could maybe beat this thing with lifestyle. So they have some cognitive dissonance because an old belief that they once held, this is genetic, is now being confronted by a new belief, a new potential belief that they're trying to understand, which is, no, you can combat this with lifestyle. And so what happens is, as they're getting closer to me and in our ecosystem and learning more about a plant-based lifestyle and hearing testimonials from other students and clients and people in our community, they're like, well, maybe this is possible. Maybe I don't have to be on blood pressure meds for the rest of my life. Maybe I don't have to be overweight for the rest of my life. Maybe there is a fighting chance to beat this type 2 diabetes. And they're like, I don't know what to think or what to believe, but slowly, the longer they stay in our community, the more they do our challenge and come to my masterclasses and listen to our information. But then the more they start doing the things I'm teaching, they're drinking the water, they're eating the plants, they're eating the fiber, they're eliminating the stress, they're eliminating the sugar, they're eliminating the animal products. They're seeing their numbers change and a new belief begins to emerge. And when that new belief begins to emerge, they start going harder because now they really believe it's possible. They got some evidence that it's possible and they really start going harder, right? That's what it means to say that belief precedes behavior. And so I'm here to suggest to you guys that if there's an area of your life that's in the middle, it's not the worst, but it's not optimal, the first thing you want to check in with is the belief that you're holding in that space. Maybe you believe marriage is supposed to be hard and difficult and challenging. Maybe you do have a belief about your health that you can maybe get better, but complete remission or complete healing is not possible. Maybe in your career, you've been taught that you do the things for money and job security and benefits, and your happiness on the job is irrelevant, right? Do you have a belief that's informing your decision making? And I'm going to tell you what several of my beliefs were. And when I began to change and shift these things, then things started begin to change and shift in every area. So let's get into number one. I want to talk about faith, okay? And so I'm going to tell you what all three things are first, and I'm going to break each one down. There's three significant things that I had to start ignoring in order for my life satisfaction to significantly increase. Not just get slightly better and be like, it's a little better than it was before, but I mean black and white, like day and night difference, okay? And those three things are my senses, my sight, my hearing, and touch. I'm going to say it again, then I'm going to break it down. In order for my life satisfaction to go from average, 5, 6, to above average, 12 out of 10, I had to start ignoring, and I want to be even more extreme. I had to start neglecting my sight, my hearing, sound, and touch. I had to start ignoring my senses. Let me make it plain. So when I was growing up, even to this day, like education is a big value system in my family, but not because necessarily my mom said that to me over and over again, but because I watched her go to college even after having 2 kids. I watched her go back to school. She finished her bachelor's, she finished her master's, and she got a job working for the federal government. Then my auntie, same thing, bachelor's, master's degree, job working for the federal government, right? I've watched my auntie, who's like a genius in the tech space, work for big companies like IBM, whatever. My uncle, who's like a brilliant salesman, I watched him work for all these different companies, right? He done sold everything from mortgages to vacuums. He's just like brilliant when it comes to sales and marketing. And so my whole life, I watched people work jobs, right? I watched people get up and go to a work at a business that they did not start. Okay. So when I graduated from college with my bachelor's, what was my plan? The same. I wanted to do everything I saw, right? I'm like, okay, I guess the next step is to start applying for jobs, to get a job that's going to pay me a predetermined salary that I didn't have a say in. And then that's going to ideally give me some time off every now and then if they so desire to approve it. And then that's going to pay me some benefits that's going to help, supplement my health care and all of these things. And so that's what I did. But guess what happened, y'all? Something crazy started happening. A few years into working as a foster care worker, I got a government job, just like my mom did. I was working for state government. She was working for federal government. But a few years into working this job, I realized I didn't like it. Now we have a problem. Because at first, my behavior and my beliefs were aligned. I believed that the order of operations was schooling, higher education, higher degree, land a good job, work the job for years, retire. That was my belief. And so I followed that system and I got the job. But then I started having issues a few years into the job when I realized I wasn't happy at the job. And I'm like, well, I want to travel and I want to see the world. And that's what I'm really excited about. And that's what I'm passionate about. I don't know why I was obsessed with seeing the world, but I was. And so now we have cognitive dissonance. Now we have some challenges. Now we got some friction because now my beliefs no longer align with my behavior. I'm working a job, but my desire is to do something different. And so I eventually made the decision to start my own business in 2015 and become a full-time entrepreneur. However, what I had previously seen, witnessed, did not align with that new decision. So the only way I was able to move the needle in my career satisfaction is I had to literally ignore what I'd seen. My senses were working against me. Like if I wanted to do something different that will provide me the freedom that I desired, for me, it was time freedom. It was geographic freedom. I'm flighty. I need to be able to go at any moment, right? I needed time freedom. I needed geographic freedom. I wanted unlimited financial possibilities. And I wanted personal freedom. And what I mean by personal freedom is, like, for example, I don't like to wear slacks. So I didn't want to work somewhere where I had to do something that didn't align with my personal preferences. I don't like wearing slacks. I don't like wearing suits. I don't like wearing pumps. So I needed personal freedom to be who I was and whatever I wanted that to look like. Time freedom, geographic freedom, and then, of course, unlimited opportunities financially. But I had only seen people working a 9-to-5 that did not offer that time freedom, that financial freedom, and that personal freedom. Sometimes the things they offered align with our true desires, and that's the ideal situation, but not all the time, right? And so I had only seen my family go to school and get jobs and do well at jobs, like making really good money, and ideally they were secure, but I had never seen what I desired. I didn't, up until this point, have anybody in my family that was a full-time entrepreneur who was working in a company that they had started and had managed to build it to a place where they had stability and the freedoms that they desired. The very first thing that I had to ignore in order to improve my life satisfaction was my own sight, my own vision. Listen to me very closely. Your senses are at the root of a lot of your unhappiness because you're making decisions only based on what you can see. So when they say walk by faith, not by sight, this is exactly what it meant for me. I'm like, okay, I've only seen people work a 9-to-5, but my personal preferences for my quality of life demands that I work for myself. So in order to improve my personal career satisfaction, it wasn't about let me find a job that let me work from home, or let me find a job that allows me to get upward mobility. Or maybe I could have unlimited financial opportunity if I worked a job that paid for commission based on performance. I'm not saying what I wanted wasn't available in a different structure. But for me, even though I had never seen a successful entrepreneur in my immediate ecosystem, I had to walk by faith and not by sight. The first thing I did to improve my quality of life, but specifically my career satisfaction, I had to walk by faith and make a decision that would align with my personal preferences and goals and desires and didn't necessarily mirror what I had seen. Is that making sense, y'all? And we get into ears in 1 second. Like, I need you guys to understand that for some of you, you too will have to ignore what you've seen. Do you know how many times we want to do something, but because we've never seen it done, we don't think it's possible? You're like, listen, Lisa, I hear you saying that making adjustments to my lifestyle can improve my health, but everybody in my family is overweight. My mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, they all got high blood pressure. I ain't never even seen nobody not have high blood. Can you imagine the fight you have to fight and how uphill the battle is when you're trying to do something, when you've only seen the opposite of what you're trying to do? Do you know how much you have to ignore? Like, you've only seen, or imagine wanting to start your own businesses, but you've only seen people who have failed in business. Like my mom tried to start a business, my best friend tried to start a business, and it didn't work out for them. Do you know how much you have to ignore your sight when you want to do something that you ain't never seen before? Like, walking by faith and not by sight. Like, I'm talking about blindly, eyes shut, wandering in these streets. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out this entrepreneurship. I don't have a single person to turn to. For me to get coaching, I had to pay for it. I've been paying for coaching for years because I had to pay for new vision. I had to pay for New Vision because my immediate ecosystem, my immediate circle, it wasn't there. So the first thing I had to ignore was my sight. I promise you, it changed the game. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. So that's the first thing I had to ignore was my sight. Now, how many of you guys need to ignore your sight? How many of you guys are looking around and being like, I've only seen this done. I've only seen relationships in this way. I have people in my life, friends who've never seen a successful marriage, and they trying to have a successful marriage. Can you imagine that? Now, I'm blessed. I've only seen successful marriages. Like my mom is successfully married 20 something years. My uncle is successfully married. I've only seen successful marriages. So when I get married, it's probably going to be an easier battle, because I have people I can go to and I have examples I can lean on. Like my coach is in a successful marriage. Like I'm surrounded by successful, happy marriages. But imagine you've never seen one, but you desire one. That's what I need y'all to understand. You got to walk by faith and not by sight. Your senses have too much power. They're making too many decisions for you. If you're making decisions based on only what you've seen, and what you've seen is not what you desire, it's only a problem if what you've seen is not what you desire. If what you see is not what you desire, your faith muscle is going to have to be built up. It needs some work. Like you got to get in the gym and work the faith muscle every single day to fight against what you've seen. Does that make sense, y'all? If all you've seen is failure in business, it's going to be a hard battle if you only want to walk by sight. So you got to walk by faith. Danae says, had to pay like LASIK. Absolutely. You got to pay for a new vision. I had to get in spaces where people had successful businesses and were entrepreneurs and have been entrepreneurs for years because I've only seen the 9 to 5 modeled. I've only seen that modeled. I hadn't seen entrepreneurship modeled. And so for me to be where I am today, 10 years in business, never had to go out of business, never had to go back to a job. Like I haven't worked a 9 to 5 since 2012. I did have jobs since then, though they just weren't 9 to 5s. Like I worked as a personal trainer. But I mean, in a corporate structure with like pay and benefits and you can move up the ladder. I haven't done that since like 2012. And so for me to still be able to survive from that moment to this one is me walking by faith and not by sight. So that's the first thing that I had to ignore to improve my career satisfaction, my overall life satisfaction. Let me give you guys the second one. So I listen to a lot of entrepreneurial podcasts, y'all, and I love them. Like I love origin stories. I read a lot of books and I love reading successful entrepreneurs' origin stories. So let me tell y'all something that oddly happened for me. So I'm listening to these podcasts, I'm listening to these books and, listening to people tell their story on stages. And over and over and over again, I kept hearing people talk about how they had to go broke, lose everything. Some of them even ended up homeless, sleeping on couches, my coach eating out of trash cans. Like I kept hearing these origin stories over and over and over again about extreme loss or extreme failure. And then there was always a comeback, but there was always a rock bottom. Like Lisa Nichols talking about going to the ATM and not having enough to buy Pampers for her son. My coach, E.T., being homeless at 16, eating out of trash cans, right? Steve Harvey lost everything because a dirty tax attorney stole his money and he owed the IRS a ridiculous amount of money. Listening to Kevin Hart, couch surfing, going to shows just to make enough money at that show to get to the next show on the road and sleeping in the car. And I have so many stories that I've listened to over and over again about rock bottom, these people who are successful, but they had these rock bottom moments. So guess what happened to me? I didn't know what was happening at the time, but the more I would hear these stories with these rock bottom moments, the more my subconscious began to believe that rock bottom was required before significant success. So before there was a quantum leap into overflow, there was a rock bottom. And so I remember looking up one day and realizing that I was inadvertently waiting for another boot to drop. Okay, we had a good week or we had a good month or we had a good quarter in business, but this is not going to last because I haven't had a rock bottom yet. I got to have a rock bottom to be successful. Like on everything I love, y'all, I was really waiting to lose everything. I'm like, I ain't ate out of a trash can yet. So clearly I'm not going to be a millionaire yet. So this was a good month. Yeah, we done had a 6-figure launch, or yeah, we done made a couple $100,000 this year, or yeah, but I'm like, but this, I can't get excited because I haven't slept on nobody's couch yet. I need y'all to understand how much I believe that rock bottom was a requirement for extreme success in business. I'm like, because everybody's story I had heard was just that. Like, yeah, they're sweet now and they're like well-known and successful now, but they all lost everything or came from nothing or like didn't know where their next meal was coming from. And so I was like, I couldn't even celebrate some successes because I'm like, I know this is not going to last because God requires you to have a rock bottom before you can be successful. Like, over the past decade, I've worked really hard to establish a personal brand that has been built organically off of my persona, personal values, preferences, and mastery. One of the things I know to be true about building a personal brand is that it would not have been possible or as successful had I not started with my personal health. For me, that meant physically losing weight and gaining body confidence, developing self-awareness, and most importantly, healing emotionally from things that I needed to work through before I could show up authentically in my business and be in service to others. If you know that you need to do the work to significantly improve your physical, mental, or emotional health so that you can establish or grow your personal brand, you need to be in the Next Plant Protocol 30-Day Vegan, Salt, Oil, and Sugar-Free Challenge. This is my way of helping you to do exactly what I've personally done. Gain professional success by starting with personal success. Many times when we're on a mission to help others, we get consumed by what we need to learn or the credentials we believe we need before we're qualified and ready to serve. However, what we really need is to start with ourselves. We need to start with self-mastery. We actually need to get the weight off and eliminate things like chronic fatigue. We need to start feeding our bodies and our brain properly and lift things like brain fog so that we can clearly be creative and have recall. We need the ability to concentrate so that we can produce excellent intellectual property. If you want to do things like write a book or create some other form of intellectual property, maybe you want to become a well-known and highly sought-after speaker. If you're interested in having a coaching program that actually transforms lives, then you are required to be the best version of yourself first. You can't show up as a mediocre version of yourself trying to help others become the best version of themselves. So if I'm talking to you and your personal brand needs some work, I invite you to register for the Next Plant Protocol 30-Day Vegan, Salt, Oil, and Sugar-Free Challenge, the Personal Brand Edition. The challenge runs from July 1st to July 30th. However, prep classes will be held in the month of April, May, and June leading up to the challenge. Past challengers have experienced things like significant weight loss, complete reversal or remission of conditions like type 2 diabetes and hypertension, getting over food addictions, mental and emotional clarity. We've even had people who have actually launched their businesses directly from the information they've received and the experience they had during the challenge. This is where you want to be. If you are a current or aspiring speaker, coach, consultant, or leader desiring to impact the lives of others. So click the link in the show notes and join us in our Next Plant Protocol 30-Day Plant-Based Salt, Oil, and Sugar-Free Challenge. We're looking forward to launching your personal brand. Now on to the show. So guys, finally, I had a moment, a light bulb moment where I slowly started realizing like that might not be the truth for everybody, because some kind of way, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, God keeps making a way for us to stay above board and allow me to eat another meal and allow like some kind of way all the lights stay on, like some kind of way I don't have to let anybody go because we can't afford to pay them. Like some kind of way things keep working out. And finally, I had to face the facts that what I was seeing in my business, we continued to be able to stay in business, was not adding up with what I had heard. The second thing I had to ignore to improve my life satisfaction was my hearing. I had heard all of these stories about everybody else losing everything and everybody else having a rock bottom. And it was hard for me to believe that that wasn't required to be successful. But I got to a point in business and in life where I couldn't ignore what I was saying. I'm like, yeah, but every time I think it's over for us, a blessing comes through, and then a blessing started compounding. And so the second thing I had to do to improve my life satisfaction was walk by faith, not by sound. The first one, walk by faith, not by sight. I had only seen people work a 9 to 5. The second one for me was walk by faith, not by sound. I had only heard of people having success following rock bottom. So I thought that was going to be a requirement for me. Let me give you another example I remember. Several years ago, I enrolled at Wayne State University because I didn't think I was qualified to help people in their health. And, I was super passionate about health, and I had done a ton of work to master nutrition science and exercise science and lifestyle science. And I felt qualified to help people make some significant shifts in their health. But I had heard from a handful of clients that my doctor said, and I'm like, they're not going to believe me unless I'm a doctor. And then when I go to events, and I was going to these plant-based conferences, and on all the speakers were doctors on stage. And I'm like, shoot, in order to be credible, I need to become a doctor, because I had heard and seen everybody else that seemed to have authority in the space. They had these doctors after their name. And so I made the grave mistake of enrolling pre-med at Wayne State University because I didn't feel like I was qualified. And it was only until I had that moment that I realized how you want to serve people in their health. They don't even teach you in medical school. They don't even teach that. Like, they don't teach they only teach. So why are you going there? You're going there for the credential, but not for the education. And that didn't make sense. Right. But I was only going by what I had heard and seen. And so I deemed myself as unqualified. And so walk by faith, not by sight. Walk by faith, not by sound. So I'm going to ask you, what stories have you heard? What advice have you been given? What no have you heard that made you and led you to believe that you made a decision that was misaligned with your true desires? Because when I heard no from clients, like, I don't want to eat that because my doctor said this runs in my family. So I can't trust you, Lisa, because my doctor said I just need to be on statins for the rest of my life. Like, no, I don't trust you because. So I heard no's. I heard not right now, right? I heard rock bottom stories, and all of this was in my head telling me something different that didn't align with what I desired and what my path was. And so in order to get rid of that and in order to get back on the right path, I had to ignore what I was hearing. Walk by faith, not by sound. Y'all ready for number 3? Now, I told you guys, because I didn't have evidence of successful entrepreneurship really in my immediate ecosystem, I had to pay for a different vision, right? And so I've had coaches for many years now, many, many years. I've invested way over 6 figures in coaching, like multiple 6 figures in coaching, right? And it's been great. I love having a coach. I love having a community. I love it. But the last coach that I invested in, the very last coach, which is my current coach, I was at an event and they were speaking and they were sharing, and they made an offer for a higher level mastermind. And I heard the offer. I knew I wanted to increase my proximity to the coach and to the community, right? So I knew my immediate response was, yes, I want to do this. I want to be in this. This sounds like exactly what I need, right? But then they said the price, okay? The price was over $30,000. So they said the price, and I looked at my bank account. I'm like, oh, that don't add up, right? I'm like, that price don't add up what I can put my hands on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, dang, okay, but this. And even when I carried the 1 and did some division, I'm like, that's still, I'm like, I had just like bought a house. I was like, okay, and I got to make this make sense. Now, I really feel in my spirit, this is the next place I need to be. Like, I really feel in my spirit, this is where I want to be. This is the coach I want. This is the community I want. I really feel that in my spirit. However, I can't touch that much. Like I can't put my hands on that much, Jesus. So please make it make sense for me, right? But I'm like, but I know something is telling me this is where I need to be. Something is telling me this is the next step for me in my personal growth and my personal development and in my business, right? So that I could become the leader I need to be. And so I don't know if any of you guys have ever had that experience where you have been offered the thing that you believe is what you need next. But then you look in your bank account and you can't touch that much. Like, you like, well, how? Who's going to fill the gap? Like they got it. Even the payment plan was a stretch. I'm like, ooh, almost $3,000 a month, huh? Okay, well, all right. And I'm like, wait a minute. But I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I was like, well, I know I can make this first three. I know I can pay this first 3K. So I put the first 3K down, y'all, right? I paid that 3K. And I'm like, how are we going to do the other 3Ks, Lord? And I'm like, well, I know I'm not making a rash or an impulsive decision. And I consulted God about it. I was at a hotel at the time. And I remember walking back to my room and I remember having a conversation with God. And I'm like, is this the next step you want me to take in my growth as a leader and my growth as a human? I'm like, it feels good. And I remember I was in a relationship at the time and I called my partner and I asked him, like, what you think I should do? Like, and he like, oh yeah, you should do it. You need to be in that. And I'm like, okay. So, I consulted two people I trusted, the God first and then my partner. And then I'm like, he like, yeah, you should do it. I'm like, all right, bet. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I don't know how. I'm like, all right, well, we got to make money and be like, I'm like, okay, well, the good news is we generate our own money, right? So we got some control over this. And so I went ahead and I took the leap and I decided to make the investment and I didn't miss a payment. And we managed to be successfully in a community from that day to this one years later, right? So much so, I didn't know at the time, obviously, what it would turn into or what miracles would happen in the community. But it ended up turning into us signing a partnership deal with the community, right? With the community. And it turns out, right, to this day, right, I end up meeting people in the community that like are extremely meaningful to me. And so relationships, business, and then my own personal growth and development as a leader and so forth and so on. And so it ended up being by far to date one of the best investments I've made. But I didn't know it at the time. And I was willing for a moment to base my decision on what I could touch. I'm like, I can't exactly touch 30K, so maybe I shouldn't, right? And so the third thing that I had to start ignoring in order to improve my life satisfaction was what I could touch. Like sometimes we think if I ain't got it, I ain't going to get it. If I ain't got it, provision is not going to be provided. And it's not true. So for me, taking my life satisfaction to mid 5, 6 to a 12 out of 10 require me to ignore my sight, require for me to ignore my sound, and require for me to ignore what I could touch. Just because you can't put your hands on it, just because you can't figure out how it's going to happen, just because you are unsure how you're going to make it work, doesn't mean you shouldn't. And for some of us, a lot of you, your mind maybe works like mine once did, which is I only make decisions based off what's in front of me, what I can see, what I can predict. And sometimes that's not the best way to make decisions. You got to walk by faith, not by sight. Walk by faith, not by sound. Walk by faith, not by touch. For some of us, our senses are keeping us stuck because we're basing only on what we see, what we hear, and what we can touch. Let me tell you something. When I worked as a foster care worker for the state of Michigan, we got a lot of bad cases. So Child Protective Services would take the children out the home. And once they took the children out the home, it was my job as the foster care worker to begin doing the work to hopefully reunite the child with their biological family if their family acquiesced to court orders. And let me tell y'all something. Some of the worst cases that I saw or that we saw in foster care were cases of what we call neglect, right? Meaning the kids will come in and they will be dirty, like physically dirty, teeth yellow, rotten, right? They will smell bad. Their reading and their literacy level will be below what it should be for their age. And so some of the worst cases we saw in foster care were cases of neglect, educational neglect, nutritional neglect. Kids will be below weight. They will be pale, right? So they weren't eating healthy. They weren't going to school. They weren't being cleaned. Like some of the worst cases were cases of neglect. And so, of course, neglect for a lot of us is a bad word. Like we shouldn't neglect things. Like you want to take care of stuff because what you don't take care of will automatically begin to move towards disorder. That's the law of entropy, right? Anything that you ignore and don't take care of will move closer and closer to disorder. However, sometimes we have thoughts and beliefs and emotions that are attached to those thoughts and beliefs that we should go out of our way to neglect. See, neglect, we've probably most of us, like I have associated with a bad thing. Like you don't want to neglect your relationship. You don't want to neglect your finances. You don't want to neglect your health, right? You're absolutely right. But for some of us, we're entertaining things that should be neglected. For some of us, we're entertaining thoughts of fear that should be neglected. For some of us, we're entertaining thoughts of lack that should be neglected. Fear, I read a line recently in a book that says, fear thoughts have no heavenly credentials. They have no credibility. Thoughts of fear have no credibility. Thoughts of lack have no credibility. Thoughts of I'm not enough, so I'm going to enroll in medical school. I should have neglected that thought. It cost me thousands of dollars because I gave attention to something that should have been neglected. Like for a lot of us, the things that we've entertained around beliefs and stories of lack and not enough, and it won't work out, and I'm not good enough, and it's too late for me, and it's going to take too long. And all of these stories, for a lot of us, we've entertained them and fed them so much that they've grown and they've been able to take over. But what we should have really done is neglected them. This book also said, take your attention away from thoughts of fear and they will die of neglect. For some of us, the things that we've seen, the things that we've heard, the things that we can currently touch, and we think that's all we have access to, we need to start letting those beliefs that are attached to those things die of neglect. Anything that you don't take care of will die of neglect. And some of us are not doing a good job at choosing what we should feed and what we should starve. I was in church yesterday. My pastor said, the point of giving something up is so that you can learn what you can live without, right? And so for some of us, we're like, no, I got to have this security blanket, right? Or, we're staying in relationships because we don't want to be alone because we believe like the only love and somewhat of intimacy that I have access to is the person I can reach over and touch right now. But if you know that's not it, if you know that's not home, don't be afraid to let go of what you currently have so that you can bear witness to what you can live without. He said the point of giving up something and letting things go is so that you can learn what you can live without. You can learn what you're capable of. Like for a lot of people, when they come into our ecosystem and they're like, I'm willing to reduce sugar. I'm willing to reduce dairy, but I don't want to give up cheese completely. We're afraid to give it up because we don't think we can live without it. We're afraid to give up doing things DIY, do it yourself. Like we think I can't afford to pay for anything. There's no way I can live without sugar and cheese and chicken, even though it's killing me slowly. My numbers say so. My weight shows it. My energy levels is evidence of it, but I want to retain some of it. And because we're unwilling to see what we're able to live without. Let me tell you something. For a lot of us, fear keeps winning because fear keeps getting fed. I'm going to say it again. Fear keeps winning because fear keeps getting fed. Soon as you stop feeding it, soon as you start neglecting it, it will die. Everything that you neglect dies. Everything. So all of us need to master neglecting the right things. That's your takeaway for today. When I mastered the art of neglecting the right things, my life satisfaction, my health, my career, my relationships, quickly, it didn't even take long, quickly in a matter of a couple years, went from a mid 5, 6, 7 to a 12 out of 10. You got to learn what to neglect and what to entertain. That makes sense, y'all? So I started this series, we'll call it a series, called an intimate conversation series with myself. And I want to just host these intimate conversations where we're just holding space to go deeper around some things, right? Not doing heavy teaching, not doing a whole lot of high level systematic teaching, but just hosting intimate conversations. I'm feeling called towards these really intimate conversations with depth lately, right? And so we did one in February about stress and healing. I hosted an intimate conversation and it seemed to be well received. And during that conversation, someone raised their hand to share that their source of stress was their marriage. And after she shared about her marriage, then somebody else said, actually, that's me too, right? And somebody else shared that her current source of stress is her marriage. And then somebody emailed me who was on that call and she said, hey, I'm also would love some more conversation around the marriage and the relationship piece. And so what I did is I reached out to my friend Terrence, who was on that call, who's in the chat right now on YouTube. And I said, Terrence, we need to put something together for individuals who want to talk through what a healthy marriage and a healthy relationship looks like. Now, I'm not married and I'm never married. I was once engaged and I will be married, but I'm not. And so of course, I'm not going to overstep my boundary. So here's what I did for you guys who are interested in this. I reached out to some friends and some colleagues of mine who have successful marriages. Remember earlier, I told you I'm surrounded by successful marriage, like literally surrounded. Like when they say freeze, you're surrounded. Like I can't go out the back door, the front door, the window, the top floor, the attic. Everywhere I go, it's a successful marriage. In my personal life, in my family, in my mastermind, in my friends, like I'm surrounded by healthy marriages. God is good, right? Showing me what's possible. For me to ignore everything I had seen and heard in all those areas of my life up until now, it required work. I had to neglect some things. I had to neglect some previously held beliefs. I had to neglect new limiting beliefs that tried to pop up and tell me a different story, right? Because those old beliefs are well trained and they know how to rewrite themselves and reappear. Ooh, them tricky little devils, ain't they? Do you think you got rid of one belief and they go back into the lab? It's like COVID, right? What's the new version that come out at a limiting belief? Honey. And so I had to, when a new belief went in the lab and rewrote itself and tried to pop back up, I had to neglect that too, right? And so that's what worked for me, neglect. It's wild to say, but neglect is what worked for me to get me where I am today, happy in my career, happy in my health, happy in my relationships. It was neglect. I had to neglect some things. And so if you need help with that, then I encourage you to get in our ecosystem and definitely sign up. And that way you can get our emails as I'm hosting these intimate conversations and hosting master classes. You can come take what you need. Okay. I hope my story inspired and helped you all today. And I hope you guys go off to have an absolutely phenomenal week. Until then, if you need me to be in your ear and in your head so that you can get new beliefs, follow the Plant Protocol podcast. Go ahead and binge that. And that's the best place to hear from me on a regular cadence so that you can replace those old beliefs with the new ones that you need to believe to get to a 12 out of 10. Until next time, y'all. Bye. You tuned in today because, like me, you refuse to let your good become the enemy of your great. You're not settling for good health when optimal is well within reach. If you're ready to go from good to great, visit lisaangelsmith.com to learn more about our plant-based health coaching program, Farm to Table, and our plant-based business accelerator and coaching certification. But before you go, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast. Until next time, remember, radical obedience is still undefeated. Stay obedient.